All right, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to give a few minutes for some more people to hop on here. All right, before we dive in today, I'll go through a few housekeeping items. First of all, hi, my name's Lucy Volway, and I'm on the marketing team here at Spectora. We are super excited to have you guys with us today for this webinar on how to grow your inspection business with Spectora's new web and SEO strategies. Matt Horn is Spectora's web team manager. He's going to be presenting today. We'll have Q&A coming in through the Q&A function in Zoom as well as through the chat. If you have any questions or issues pop up, feel free to pop them in there. I will be managing that and just checking in throughout to make sure everyone's doing all right. We'll save about 15 to 20 minutes at the end of this for us to run through any larger questions with Matt and dive into those conversations. So I'm going to pass it over to you now, Matt, and you can go ahead and kick us off.
Sweet. Thanks, Lucy, and good morning, everyone. I'm looking forward to diving in here today. So let me go ahead and get started with the slideshow. I'm sharing my screen. Okay, so the topic for today is how to grow your inspection business with Spectora's new website and SEO strategies. So some of the things we'll cover today are just kind of industry best practices, talking a little bit about Google, talking a little bit about websites and SEO, some of the newer features, some of the things that we're still doing that we need to make sure we're always paying attention to with Google. And as Lucy mentioned, any questions, please feel free to chat those in throughout. We can stop, kind of have a little bit of a back and forth, but we will have some time at the end as well. So just to start, again, covering the different trends, we're going to give some different tips, things people can be doing on their own, certain things Spectora can be doing to help you, some of the new web and SEO, and then we'll have that Q&A at the end. So we'll just jump right in. Biggest things to look for, local SEO. So everybody pretty much has an understanding that with Google and the local search results, that local SEO has become more important than ever. So just to paint a quick picture, and I'm going to be talking a lot about Google today, just because Google is still the king of all search engines. So much traffic is going through Google. A lot of the other search engines that are out there follow a similar algorithm when it comes to displaying search results. So a lot of this can be sort of copied on different platforms, but Google is broken out into 4 different sections or 4 different sandboxes. You have your Google ads, your pay-per-click, which is your traditional Google ads. You're spending money and bidding on certain keywords. You have your local maps section, which is local SEO. So you have your profile, your reviews, your business information. Then you have your organic or your natural results, which typically fall below the maps. And that's where SEO really comes into play, working with your website and trying to get yourself ranking higher for the top search terms on Google. And then there's a 4th section, which is called Google Guaranteed or Google Local Service Ads. So I'll touch base on that in a little bit. But the only one we're really not going to cover today is just the pay-per-click. So local SEO, that's referring to, again, kind of your local results, your reviews, ranking in that 3-pack, that's called. So if you're doing a search on Google, typically you have that local section with 3 inspectors that show up. So you're doing your business profile, you're updating it, you're getting new reviews, you're putting in different keywords and content, whether it be on Google Posts, whether it be within your actual profile or your description, or you can do that through Google's own Q&A section. So there's a lot of different ways that you can be active with your Google business profile. And we'll talk a little bit about that too as we move forward. But local SEO is huge to making sure that we're getting reviews, making sure our profile is validated, confirmed, and up and running. Mobile-friendly websites. We still see some sites that are coming through, that aren't 100% responsive or mobile-friendly. And when I say coming through, just looking at different websites that are out there on the web, but we know that people are doing searches through their mobile phone. So mobile-friendly websites win. If you have a question about whether my site is mobile-friendly or responsive, we can always take a look at that for you. Google's going to prioritize that mobile first. So responsive, if you go to a website and you have to zoom in and out to look at the content, that's not a responsive website. And then slow, outdated sites, so really are falling behind. Google's all about user experience. Google wants people coming back and people using Google time and time again. So they want to display the most user-friendly, relevant results. Trust signals are ranking signals. And what we mean by this is there's a little bit of a way that Google kind of favors different business and websites. So expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. And so you want to make sure that you're highlighting certifications, that your experience, that your team bios, reviews, badges, original content. This is propping your website up and saying we're the best of the best. And then Google is rewarding that. So making sure that we have everything up to date with the different badges on the website. Again, you guys are the best in the business. And so we want to make sure we're highlighting that. And then the last one here is the content. So this is going to roll into a little bit of the AI conversation that we're going to have towards the end of this webinar, but relevant, helpful content that is answering these different questions, whether it's done through FAQs, whether it's done through articles and blogs, video content. Remember, Google owns YouTube. So if we do a little short video on YouTube, you're getting a little bit of a boost right then and there, simply due to the fact that kind of hand in hand with Google. So this is all really, really, really important in today's day and age, and especially going to become more important as we go through. But content is very, very, content is king, is kind of what they say within the industry a lot. So seeing where we can post articles and blogs and FAQs where you're plugging in top keywords, and then also some of the longer tailed keywords that Google's paying attention to, it's really going to help your business as well. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But those are some of the industry trends. Then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the tips that you can do on your end to kind of help boost. And then we'll dive into some of the websites and then some of the specifics on the SEO on the Spectora side. This is coming off of the last slide, so blogging regularly. So Google is paying attention to how often the website is being updated. So it gives you more chances to rank. When we say long-tailed key phrases, that just means that it's a longer version of an actual search term. So instead of home inspector, it might be, what should I be paying attention to the day before my home inspection? So kind of longer tailed, drawn out key phrases. And that's where you can really get those terms in with blogs and FAQs. Social media, it's still important to kind of have your name out there on the different platforms. It's not that you have to go in there and post once a day, but that you are engaged, that you do have a profile linking back to your website. So again, Google sees that you're relevant on all different platforms that are out there. It kind of helps when they're paying attention to, if you have an inspector and they're determining who to rank, and one inspector is found there on the web in many different places and has a lot of relevant information, it's going to be more of a priority for Google to kind of put those up based if you just have maybe a simple website and you're not really doing much other than that. Google reviews. Google reviews is still extremely important. Reviews are gold. They are the livelihood of your business. Even if somebody refers you, that person that they refer you to most likely is going to go online, look at your website, look at your reviews. So the more recent, the more frequent ones we can get in, they do have a direct impact on local rankings. And then also people just doing their due diligence and looking up and learning more about your business. So reviews are still extremely important, especially on Google. Building inbound links. So this is something that Google pays attention to, and it's almost a little bit of like a popularity contest, but do you have relevant inbound links pointing to your website? So I have my website, Lucy has her website. There's a link from my website. If the user clicks on it, it takes them to Lucy's website. Lucy is receiving an inbound link from a source out there on the web. I don't really get any benefit from linking out to Lucy's website. That's an outbound link, but the inbound links pointing to your domain are very important and can help. Again, Google looks at many different factors, many different things when it comes to ranking. And so their algorithm is paying attention to the website, the reviews, things of that nature. And inbound links is one of these. So if you have your site and you have people that you're working with, maybe different contractors who have a website, getting a link from their website pointing to your website, or real estate agents, directories, these backlinks do help boost credibility with Google. Again, it's one of many things. If you're only doing this, you need to spread out and focus on content, things on the website. But if we're talking about kind of a well-rounded program to try to get more business and more traffic to the website, this is another great avenue. So starting to think of who in the local community you might be able to contact and say, hey, what if we did a featured blog post on your website? And at the bottom, it has a link to our website. And that way you're receiving an inbound link from another source on the web. And the last one here, I just want to mention this, Google local service ads. This is something I alluded to at the very beginning. And if you're doing a search on Google, you can see now, typically at the very top, there's a green check mark and it says Google guaranteed next to those search results. That's something that is a little bit newer with Google, but it's a pay per lead type model. So if you're, just starting out and looking for different ways to kind of get traffic immediately, where SEO is more of that medium to long-term strategy, local service ads is something that's free to sign up for. You can use your budget, whichever you need. The cost per lead depends on the marketplace, depends on many different factors. So we don't have an exact number for you there, but getting it signed up, it also loops in your Google local reviews as well. And then you can turn it on and off. It's the faucet mentality of marketing, where if you're super busy, you can turn it off. If you want to drive more leads, you can turn it on. This isn't necessarily something that Spectora offers as a service, but it is important for me to just bring this up because it is another avenue on the web that we want to let people know about that could be beneficial to your business as well. All right. So that was a little bit of, industry trends, a little bit of kind of what's out there, what we can be doing on our own. So now what I want to do is dive into some of the newer things that we're seeing within the website world, some of the newer website features that we have at Spectora, and then also dive into some of the SEO, which we have some newer features there as well. So on the website side, kind of some of the newer things that we're working on here is we have a new widget that pulls in the pricing and services. So we know that we're always kind of changing around. We're always adding maybe some different services, changing around pricing, having the different modifiers that determine pricing. And sometimes it's a little bit tricky to put into your website 100% what that looks like and have it really clear and clean and look fresh. And what we can do now is actually pull in the information here directly from your profile, which also means when you make an update to a price or you want to add on a different service, you can actually now, when you update it on your profile, it automatically gets pulled into the website. So no more back and forth with the team sending, hey, can you please update my pricing and services on my website? Now you can just actually go in. This will be pulled directly into your website. So it does cut down a little bit of the back and forth and just streamlines it. And also when you make that update, it's instant. So this is just kind of a visual here. We're always tweaking and figuring out better ways to make it. But if you have a lot of different inspections with a lot of different modifiers and just want a clean way of having this information, we now make it a lot easier to pull this in. And also when you update it, it's instantaneous back to the website. So that's something new. Automatic review syncing. This is something we've had, but we've done internally. We've gotten to another level where it's a little bit smoother on our end as well. So remember, pulling in your Google reviews, pulling in your Spectora reviews. When people ask me, hey, should I be getting my reviews on Google or through Spectora? Well, we say on Google because, again, that helps a little bit more. That helps with your Google business profile and ranking factors. But you're also still going to have people that leave you reviews through Spectora. Again, not everybody has a Gmail or a Google account. And if you don't have one, you physically can't go onto Google to leave a review. So the review syncing is now just allowing us to have better tools internally to pull those reviews into your website. We have a cleaner way of getting the Spectora reviews, the Google reviews, scraping those and syncing those within the website. So this is sort of a next level to something that we had already had, but reviews are extremely important. So taking a look at your website, seeing if you have the review section, if not, trying to determine, or if you have a Spectora site, communicating with our team saying, hey, let's get our reviews, making sure that they're being updated. We kind of scrape those a couple times a month to pull those back into the website. And then if you don't have a Spectora site, or you're thinking about getting one, or you have a different website, check and make sure that the reviews are being pulled in, because those are extremely important. Again, somebody, even if it's a referral, they're going to go back to your website. They're going to look at your site, see that you're, legitimate. You have the photos of you, you have the different badges, but they're also going to be looking for reviews, whether that's on your website or your Google business profile. We want to make sure that it's very easy and accessible for them to see. All right, moving right along, we have some updated demos. So for inspectors who have Spectora websites already that are on the call. Maybe it had the site built a few years ago. We have some newer demos that we have added in. One of them is a screenshot here, and then actually one of them is a screenshot on the previous page. But as always, you can find those right on the website, reach out to AMs, reach out to the sales side, and then you can look through the different demos. But it's important for us to make sure that we are updating our demos and that we're having new features, new visuals, really showing you off as the inspector, modern, clean, and then kind of the newer features in action. We know with Google that they do want to see updated content to the website, but they also do want to see, website that has newer and cleaner technology on the back end to how these websites are being built. So if we have a site that is, 4, 5, 6 years old, there's some different technology that was used to build the site. Maybe it's a little bit slower. Maybe it's just something that Google has now moved on to with anything, with cars and anything kind of moving on to a newer model is going to have some benefits simply underneath the hood when it comes to Google looking at the websites. So updated demos is something that we have into the mix. We have a newer feedback tool. And what I mean by this is when you're going through a build, and getting your website and working with our team and kind of going back and forth with the drafts and figuring out what you want on your website, there's a new feedback tool that allows the process to just be cleaner and easier to use, frankly, at the end of the day. The revisions during the build, you're dropping in comments. You don't have to email back and forth. You don't have to set up different Zooms. You're putting right on the page. And so it makes the overall experience, just a little bit smoother at the end of the day. So whether you're getting a new site, whether you're getting, a rebuild of an existing site, there are some newer tools that we have between the demos, the reviews, the prices, and services widgets, the feedback tools. So some of this is on the back end. Some of this is going to be, kind of client facing, if you will, like the pricing and widgets piece. So these are just some of the newer things that we have. Again, if you do have any questions about, your existing site and saying, hey, are there certain things that I can be doing better? Are there certain newer tools that Spectora has that we can bring in? Definitely reach out. We'll get you in touch with the right people to kind of talk through your specific situation and just make sure really that you have the most up-to-date features where needed. So that's kind of a quick rundown on the website piece. We still have our core values. We still want clean navigation, people being able to find, schedule online, getting to the website, getting the information that they need. So that's always going to be something critical as well. So then let's jump in, spend about, 5, 7 minutes talking a little bit about SEO. And then I want to talk, a couple minutes on the AI piece, and then we'll open it up to some Q&As. SEO, we've really structured and changed a little bit of our reporting aspect. So we're enhancing the different reporting techniques that we're using to visually show how the campaign is performing. A lot of times when we're working through, we're making updates to a website, we're getting more aggressive with our on-site SEO, but we're tracking our performance, our keyword performance, and really saying, hey, this is where we are when we started. This is where we are a couple months in. This is where we are now. And it gives you a visual of how things are progressing. Sometimes the work being done on the SEO, we say, is behind the scenes. You might say, well, what does that mean? And then you explain it. Say, well, I still don't fully understand. So a visual for a report can certainly help show you how the campaign is performing. So a couple of different variations here. One of them looks more almost like an Excel doc, sort of a Google sheet, where you have different columns of different dates and what was ranking for specific key terms. And then you can see the progression along the way. Where are the differences? What's the rank type between local and organic? So you can see for this particular situation going in October now to April, you can see if it has a dash here, that means it wasn't ranking in the top 100, and now where they're ranking for those terms. Same thing up above, it's just a different format. It's kind of a screenshot. This one is more, you have a January 8th to February 28th. You're looking at specific search terms, how they're ranking. So, 1 through 3 is going to be kind of that top 3 pack on Google. You have the remaining results. So typically 1 through 13, you're going to be seeing on page 1 of Google, looking at the organic and the local. And then it's going to show you the difference over here. You have some green. So you improved 5 spots for this specific search term over the course of 3 months. So it's giving us a little bit more to work off of and just kind of showing the value of the campaign. So monitoring keywords, you kind of filling out your questionnaire, giving us insight on your top cities, top areas. We're taking a look at most important search terms. We've done a lot of keyword research within the industry, so we know which ones are kind of getting the search volume. The other thing too that I don't necessarily have highlighted, but is stacking up against your competition. So this is something brand new within the reporting. You can actually add a domain. If you say, I want to know how I'm doing against this guy because he's kind of a pain. I see him online. I'm not, I just want to know, are we doing better? And so what you can do is actually include another column that shows where the competition is ranking and be able to really break down the differences there. So it's a cooler, newer feature that we've added in, and you can go up to, I think, 3 or 4 different competitors and include that in your reporting as well. So how am I doing? How am I doing versus the competition? How am I doing month to month? And it's giving a good visual appearance as to just how the campaign's performing overall. And then the bottom here is the more aggressive on site. So we're kind of doing a deeper dive, getting these title tags, metas, H1s, different content, and just climbing the rankings. So we know that Google's paying attention to a lot of different factors. And with an on-site aggressive approach mixed with some of the off-site work, which we'll talk about on the next slide, we're kind of striking a good balance so that when Google's crawling your website, they understand your website in a little bit easier fashion. So if we don't have specific search terms or areas calling out on the back end of the website, when Google's going through and crawling, they might not understand fully. They can see that it's in the content, in the footer overall, but now we're giving them even more. So we don't ever want to leave anything to chance with Google. We don't want them guessing or having to try to find that information. We want it in every single important area so that they understand what you do, where you do it. You have a clean website, and that's going to help you improve within your overall ranking factors. So moving on, Google Business Profile Optimization. This is, again, something that we've done a version of, but now as we're getting more aggressive, updating the different categories description, and then doing some posting. So Google has, their Google Business posting. If you look at a profile and you click into it, typically on the bottom right, here's an example of just what two look like. But this is where I was going back to the beginning, talking a little bit about those longer tailed key phrases, those FAQs, those kind of more engagement, more educational pieces. And so when different tools are determining how to rank, they can go here, take a look at some of the posting. We're including different areas, new construction, different keywords. And it's another way that you are becoming more involved within the Google Business Profile. So yes, Google Business Profile, the main ranking factor dictates on where you're located. So Google wants it local, so they're going to show somebody who is local. But if you have competition local and you want to try to get ahead of them, these are the different things we can be doing. So updating your Google Business Profile. This is something on the boost side that we're doing, and we're getting more aggressive with and doing some of the posting as well. So running different campaigns, figuring out the right balance here. And then the last one here is a little bit more technical, but I did want to include it. It really has to do with what's called schema markup. And this is a way that we're putting in more code in your website, again, so that Google understands and search engines understand your content and improving how you show up in the local and overall search results. So sometimes you'll do a search and they'll pull up, some different blog posts or FAQs or things within the website itself. The schema markup is allowing Google to crawl that information easier. So again, as we're getting more aggressive with the different things that we're doing, we're getting smarter as well. And so the schema markup is going to allow Google to see some of the local and some of the different things that we're focused on within the website, such as reviews as well. So these are some of the newer features that we're going through on the SEO, some of the more visuals that we're doing. And then the last thing before I kind of wrap up and do some back and forth is we get questions a lot about, how is AI being rolled into this and what are we doing? And right now, when you're doing kind of searches, they're still pulling in a lot of data from search engines. So if you do kind of like, who is a top home inspector in my area, a lot of times the results you're going to see, they're pulling that information directly in from Google and from different areas. But as you're getting more into your website and as you're doing more of these FAQs, so FAQs are really important because if somebody's doing and typing in, a different search or a different variation, they're going to go back and try to crawl the web and find the information by pulling in those websites. So it's a little bit of we're not quite there where a ChatGPT is going to overtake Google for people doing searches. We're probably getting close. But right now, ChatGPT is pulling in a lot of data from Google. So we still want to make sure we're covering all of our bases. But if you say, what should I be thinking about, for the rest of this year and things coming into even next year, building out blogs, building out FAQs, building out some of the more traditional educational content is certainly going to help you in the eyes of these different AI bots, because they're still pulling in that information directly from the search engines and also crawling your websites. So there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot that Google's paying attention to. But hopefully these give some guidance. We're here for questions. I don't know, Lucy, if anything came in that we can specifically address, but I did want to open it up right now and just see if we had anything that we can talk through a little bit more.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. That was great. We don't have a ton of questions submitted yet, but it looks like we have a few raised hands. So give me just one second here. I'm going to allow Michael to go ahead and ask his question live real quick. Hey, Michael, can you go ahead and unmute to share your question?
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, I would the Google business I have submitted in. I was 3 times repealed, and I can't even repeal anymore. And I don't know what is wrong. I just don't have any idea. I'm in communication with someone, but this is holding me back, and I don't really know what.
These suspensions, and then basically you've gone through the appeal process, Google's come back to you and they've said, we're holding our suspension, and they're not giving you another opportunity to submit another appeal. I just want to make sure.
Yes, yeah, yes, on the last one, I tried to resubmit it again and I couldn't.
If you, for this one, because every situation is a little bit unique, I'm more than happy to take a look at this with you. So maybe we can talk offline about this and see if
Okay.
there's any guidance or direction I can point you in. Typically, when a listing gets suspended, which unfortunately has happened more frequently as of the last like 6 months, Google goes through the appeal process. It could be, if it's a service-based or service area listed, but we have, a specific address, Google can be a little bit picky with it. There's a lot of things that go into it. So I don't have a direct answer off the top of my head, but Michael, let's connect after this and I can take a look into it a little bit further with you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, awesome. Next up, we have a question, it looks like from Glenn. Glenn, if you want to go ahead and
Awesome. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Got
we
you.
can.
Perfect. Thank you for the information today, and thanks for all the hard work you're doing. First off, it's definitely appreciated. My first question is that I received an email from Google Ads about 2 weeks ago saying there was changes to parked domains in Google Ads coming, and starting May 5th, Google Ads account XYZ will be, which is my account number, right? Will be automatically opted out of serving ads on parked domains. And the only way to get that change is to opt back in. And I'm just wondering, is that something you guys would handle, or are you familiar with this, or is this something I need to do?
Are you currently running different ads through pay-per-click with Google?
Not currently, no. I just thought this had something to do with my my profile being.
Yeah. So this primarily is concerned with the Google ads themselves, the traditional pay-per-click. And a lot of times what companies will do is kind of set up what they say park domains where there's not a lot of activity on the actual website itself. So what Google's trying to do is eliminate, different companies just setting up sort of like ghost websites to either have people just call them directly and get leads and then sort of resell them. So the long story short is, Glenn, let's you and I just make sure we're on the same page as far as what we need to do. If anything, I don't think you need to do anything on that, but let's just make sure we double check, since, I've been working with you on the SEO and the website for a little bit, and just make sure that there isn't anything there. But from what my understanding is, this isn't anything that would be affected necessarily with you. It's kind of these shadier companies and sites that are out there trying to generate more leads that then they resell.
Okay, it's possible that because I know that I got accepted to do the Google Ads. It's never actually followed through with doing that yet.
Okay.
Plan is to happen this month, but maybe that's because it's just been there and parked. But I do have. Go ahead.
It could be, but there's two different, there's the local service ads, which is that Google guaranteed. If I'm understanding correctly, the domains or the park domain is really just referring to the Google traditional ads or the pay per click, which is a little bit separate. But again, we can just look at it together and just confirm that we're on the right page there.
Right on. Thank you so much. And then I have one other question, real quick, and this is regarding messages that I'm getting through my site. And this is probably something we can address afterwards. I've been getting a ton of messages, and then it has a phone number. The message box is blank, and the phone numbers never go through. So I don't know if there's an issue on the back end, or if this is just people trying to like like scammers or spam stuff like that. I'm curious if this is a common thing where there's a message with a phone number and an email address. Most phone numbers don't work, and there is no message. So it's strange.
Sounds like a spam type deal. We can again kind of go through and double check. It's, we can have all the captchas, all the blockers in the world, and they still somehow get around all of this. And, I'm sure even your phone number, you block numbers and then they seem to sort of creep back in.
Yeah.
But it sounds like right now they're trying, maybe it could be like a security piece. They're just sort of pinging the website and seeing if there's any way for them to sort of get in. They don't really need the information. And the required fields might be the phone number and the email, and you don't have to leave anything else in the description, which is why it's blank. So we can also take a look at that and see if we want to change around, like maybe it needs to be a required field for them in order to even post something through. But that's definitely something we can do after this as well.
Awesome. Cool. That's kind of what I was leaning towards. So thank you so much. I'm done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. All right, looks like we had another question come into the Q&A asking Matt, how can we access the keyword SEO data?
Reach out to your campaign manager on this one. We're still going through and seeing if we can, sort of a next step is like figuring out a universal dashboard, if you will. But reach out to, you can just email after, and we'll make sure you get in touch with your campaign manager, and they'll be able to send you the reporting, the keywords, the updates, and make sure that you have all of that information readily available.
Awesome, thank you. Just got another question in asking, how is SEO working with social media?
So there's definitely a balance, if you will. The biggest thing is really just being active within social media. And so Google is, Google will crawl. They'll look at where you're relevant, where you're active on different platforms. And obviously social media like Facebook is a big one. And I know people probably have their opinions one way or the other, but having a profile that is out there on these different platforms is going to be helpful. And then doing just a periodic post. So once a month, just something, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can just be a quick question and answer, or even a generalized, like Happy Memorial Day or something, 4th of July could be just kind of a quick, 1-2 punch there. As far as specific keywords and whatnot, when you're doing a post, that is something that you can include. But a lot of times these different social media platforms now, if you do a blog or you do a post, you can sort of just have that also post on the different platforms that are out there on the web. So they are important, but having a website that converts, that has the appropriate information on the back end is more important. So I would say make sure that you have a profile set up with an inbound link to your website on the different social media platforms and be a little bit active. But the misleading concept is that you have to be posting all the time out there on the different social media, because Google pays attention to that. Not 100%. You just want to be, known that you are out there. So if Google sees that you're not out there, then that could have a negative impact. So I would say that it is still important with SEO overall, but there are more important things like your website and paying attention to content there than on the social media, but making sure that you have a profile so that if Google does crawl, you do pop up.
Perfect, awesome, thanks, Matt. We've got a few more questions coming in here. Let's see, next up, is there a way to link my Spectora reviews to my Google reviews?
If I'm understanding, it's in your Google business profile to also have a section there for your Spectora reviews. I think is
so.
what the question was, but
If Gary, if you want to message in and elaborate, feel free, but I think that's what he's saying, yes.
Yeah, we can't necessarily have, Google won't necessarily pull they can, depending on how many reviews you have. Sometimes they'll pull like reviews from other sources, and that could be an area where they can pull in. We have no control over that whatsoever. So the biggest thing is that on the website, making sure you have both, but on your Google business profile, Google just wants to see those Google reviews at the end of the day. There's no way. Plus, you want people leaving Google reviews. So I wouldn't want to have like a link to you already have a link to your Spectora website from your Google business profile, but it wouldn't be a way to link out to those reviews from your Google business. That's just on your website itself.
Great. Okay, next we have a question from Jessica. Let's see, if we have something on our website, like an article, however, other websites also have articles that are similar, do you recommend we update our articles so Google sees it as new? Or should we look at the keywords we have in the article? Just trying to understand how our website would be seen before others' websites with similar content.
Great question. The answer directly is kind of both. So there's two different ways. There's sort of repurposing old content, especially if it's articles that are being picked up. So for example, you have a page on your website and that page is being picked up by Google and you're ranking for some keywords. And then we want to update an older article with maybe just some newer information on top of it, a newer timestamp. That would be one way. And then also just newer articles in general. So that might not be the best answer because it is a little bit of a mixed bag. So what I generally look for when reviewing SEO and looking at content is if you have an older article that is ranking well, so the page on your website, you're getting traffic, then we don't necessarily want to just throw in a new one and get rid of that. We can sort of repurpose it. We can add some additional content. And then some new ones here or there is obviously just brand new content for Google. So the answer is going to be a little bit of both of them. But if you have an article that doesn't get a lot of traffic, that doesn't get a lot of hits to the website, and we can always take a look into this a little bit further with you specifically, then you don't really need to worry about that one. The fear that we have is repurposing an article that's doing extremely well from a ranking perspective. But if others have similar articles, which again, in the industry, you're going to come across that a lot, repurposing some old ones is a great way to just get that sort of with fresh eyes for Google at the end of the day.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Another question that just came in from Mike. How do I create outbound links in my Spectora website? I'm told they are as important as inbound links. What sort of outbound links create good SEO practices?
So outbound links and again, just doing this for many, many, many years, outbound links don't necessarily hold the same weight as inbound links from a Google perspective. Outbound links are still important because of the credibility factor. So outbound links, InterNACHI, different people within the industry that shows that you're a top inspector are the areas to start with. So any kind of the credibility factors, associations, badges, different things of that nature. If you have people locally that you work with, like contractors, an outbound link to their site, but always ask them if you can get an inbound link to your site at the end of the day, because Google has what's called a domain authority scale. So when they're reviewing websites, again, one of the many, many, many different factors that they're paying attention to is inbound links. So if you can get relevant inbound links pointing to your domain, but you have to give an outbound link to get that inbound link, make that trade all day. An inbound link from a one-page website that doesn't have a lot going on versus an inbound link from youtube.com is going to be night and day as far as what Google's paying attention to. Same thing with your outbound links. If you're sending an outbound link to a website that, they may have one or two pages, there's not too much going on, there's not a lot of weight that goes into it. But if you do an outbound link to a different association or, just kind of a relevant contractor, that's where I would start, is making sure that you have all of those set up first. So associations, different things that you're working through, kind of looking at those first and making sure that you're set up.
Great. That was perfect. Thank you so much, Matt. Just got another question in here. I have recently set up my Google Local Ads account and got my Google Guarantee badge, but I am not currently running ads yet because the leads are pretty expensive, $25 to $35 per lead, and I'm still deciding on a budget. What should I consider when creating a local ads budget, and what kind of ROI should I expect?
It's a great question. I don't have a perfect answer for that just because I don't live in the local ads world as much as like SEO or websites, for example. But if, and I'm sorry, I didn't catch who asked that, but if you can email us, let me do just a little bit of research and I can see if I can point you in the right direction. I just don't want to say anything right now that could be misleading and somebody else takes that and says, what the heck, that didn't necessarily work for me. But it's a really good question. And I know that sometimes the leads can be pretty high, and obviously taking a look at what your overall budget would be on a month to month. But let me see if I can get a little bit more drilled down for your specific situation, so we can connect after this as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. I just made note of that. This is Gabriel here, so we'll
Perfect.
make note to follow up. Perfect. All right. I don't see any further questions right now, but we have a few more minutes if anyone wants to pop them in the chat. In the meantime, did you want to chat through
Yeah.
anything else, Matt?
I just wanted to point this last piece out. So we are putting together web and SEO audits. So just a quick audit of your existing website. So if you don't have a Spectora website and you're just curious about, hey, how are, my websites stack up against industry standards and best practices, we have reports and audits that we can do where we'll run through the website, kind of give some pointers, take a look at a few different things going on there. And then what we also do is take a screenshot of how you rank for top search terms in your local market. So if you're curious about, hey, how am I ranking? And you give us, your top 3 cities, we'll put together a report and you can review it with your account manager. You can review it with anybody who can kind of talk through this with you. But if anybody is interested, Lucy will be the best to let you know how to get this. But again, it's just kind of like a 3-page audit. We'll go through the website, go through your local rankings. And when I say local, I just mean your local market. So we'll look if you're ranking in the maps or the organic section, put this together for you. And it's just, again, another visual for how things are looking on your end. Definitely let us know. And with that, I want to be mindful of time. So I just want to say thanks to everybody for hopping in. And for the people that we talk through and ask questions, I'll follow up, make sure we get you the right answers for everything here. And then Lucy, if there's anything else you want to share, if there's a way where people can get these awesome audits.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Matt. Just a quick recap here. We will be sending out the recording of this webinar to everyone who registered, and there will be an option to sign up for that web and SEO audit. There's a form on the recording page. You can just go ahead and submit your information there, and an account manager will be in touch to provide that audit for you. So if you have any further questions or things that come up, that's also a great way to address them. And I'm sure Matt is also happy to answer questions in follow-ups here as needed. So I think that covers everything we've got for you guys today. I will just say thank you again for joining us. This has been great. And thank you so much, Matt, for hopping on and sharing your information. This has been super helpful.
Absolutely. Happy to help. And thanks again, everyone.